If you voted for Donald Trump in 2016, but won't in 2020, what changed your mind? I feel like I was flippant in 2016. I'm in a blue state that doesn't split electoral votes, so I felt like I could do it and it didn't matter. Since then, I've just grown as a person. I've gotten married, watched my husband get diagnosed with a disease that would bankrupt us if I didn't have a government job, and it changed how I saw people. No one should have to decide to go bankrupt to get treatment they need to survive. I'm now willing to pay a little more so no one has to suffer, like we were so fortunate not to. I've also taken multiple diversity and equity trainings since 2016 that have helped me understand concepts like how saying all lives matter dismisses the point that some lives aren't being treated like they matter. Just personal growth and this sense of not wanting anyone to suffer. I was disappointed with a few things that he did here and there, but I wasn't that aware of the scope of something so it didn't seem so bad. Then COVID happened. He didn't wear a mask until recently and suddenly many of his supporters became anti-maskers. Instead of leading by wearing a mask and encouraging people to wear a mask, he continued to not want anyone to wear a mask at events. Then he started encouraging bad treatment of protesters. I literally went from a lifelong Republican to a Democrat within months. It kinda freaks me out that I changed so quickly, but I realized that they've been using brute force to do what you think is right despite what's morally right or what the country wants is just plain wrong. I'm less worried about my taxes going up a little if it means preventing a child dying from malnutrition. I'm less concerned about making sure there's no welfare fraud if it helps people that truly need it. BTW, I was always socially liberal. I just felt like most social issues didn't belong in politics. I've always wanted prison reform, equal rights for everyone, but in realizing most Republican politicians do not want those things, I feel like my eyes have been opened, and I literally used to think liberals were oblivious to taxes going up. I was wrong. I was a Republican by upbringing. I watched no other news but Fox News via my parents until I left for college. Once I gained my independence living across the country for college, I started to develop my own views. I started to get my news from more reputable sources like the app. I started to realize that many of the views I picked up from watching Fox all the time were very one-sided and often didn't result from an understanding of the full picture. And it definitely took a while, but once I started looking at multiple sources, the biased wording common in Fox articles is easy to spot and easy to avoid no matter the source, both right and left-wing bias. I should add, at the time of the 2016 election, I was on the fence. Unfortunately, I still held on to the last shred of the Republicans are the good guys. Therefore I must vote for them, and also the Clintons are power-hungry tyrants that I had left over from my childhood. I regret that vote, but that election night marked the last time for at least the foreseeable future that I vote Republican. I'm currently a registered Democrat, though I consider myself a fairly moderate liberal, and I find this position much better suits what I actually believe, not just what I'm told I believe like when I was a kid, and what I find important in how society is governed. TL. Dr. Fox News is basically propaganda, and it's super obvious if you get your news from multiple reputable sources, which changed my views. I had the same experience. It is amazing what 10 minutes of online searching can do to broaden your knowledge. I understand that my parents' generation was used to getting information from one source years ago, but today there is no excuse. Just ignorance. I moved out of my parents' house, experienced college, people from many backgrounds, and am in a career where I know what a good leader looks like, and he is most certainly not that. Honestly, this is why Republicans from poorer, predominantly poorly educated areas of the country are against college. People tend to go more left once they are exposed to different cultures and many different types of people, and happens at college pretty often. And with moving to larger cities, it makes sense if you consider that people in small town rural America often never leave their state, let alone spend much time on bigger cities. They aren't everyone around other people enough to fully realize that they aren't like the talking points make them out to be. I couldn't vote in 2016. But I would have voted for Trump. I will be voting for Biden this year. Pulling out and leaving the Kurds to be butchered. Never listening to military advisors. Committing treason. Grossly mishandling a global health crisis at the national level. Tig-butting his own people. To take a picture with a Bible he definitely doesn't read. Some things are more important than lower taxes. The first person I've seen mention the Kurds. Wish more Americans felt a sense of obligation towards pro-democracy allies. I know this was huge for some people in the military. I haven't served. But the majority of my family has. My cousin, who is the typical Imam man and men don't feel things kind of southern boy, and he cried over this. He served in the Middle East and worked directly with Kurdish soldiers. He had some that he remained in contact with, and he hasn't heard from most of them since this all went down, and doesn't know if they stopped talking to him because he's American or because something happened to them. It's awful. Edit has voting forbidden. He'll be voting for Biden after voting for Trump in 2016. His politicalization of a pandemic and poor response to it are the main reason for the change. I also strongly dislike the way he deals with Russia and the cronyism amongst his cabinet. I didn't agree with everything George Bush or Obama stood for, but I believe they were trying to improve the country in the best way they saw how. Trump seems to be only selfishly motivated and had made a mockery of our nation's highest elected office. I'm not proud to live in this country as long as he is at its helm. I look forward to November 3rd. The underrated portion, and the portion I don't think many will point out, is how you mention that you believe Obama was at least trying to improve things. It is very, very difficult to get a Republican to say that under any circumstances. I work for the United States Post Office. It's a shut show with this newly appointed PMG. I'm concerned about my future employment, my livelihood. Wish us luck in 2020. I mean, I'm glad you're not voting for him. But this just seems like more of the other sentiments in this thread, which amount to essentially I was happy to hire a leopard to eat other people's faces, but I don't like it when they come to eat mine. Well, until it happens to you, you can be convinced by multiple industries that are supported by billions of dollars annually that the other people deserve it. Sometimes it takes personal experience, either going through it yourself or seeing it happen to someone you're close to break through all the noise around you. The key is remembering that many of these people literally exist in different worlds from us. The way they access information about the outside world is mediated by a set of people designed to make them constantly fear or hate the other side. It's like a cult. First you cut people off from anything that might challenge them. Then you only feed them information telling them how righteous they are, how terrible everyone else is, and how they must be eternally vigilant for being under threat. I thought he was better than Hillary, that duck politicians type of thing. I hate him. I truly hate him, and what he has done to our country. Duck this piece of shit. I feel this one. I actually hate him, and I don't use that word loosely. Grew up in middle of nowhere conservative town. Took what my parents and others said as fact and adopted their political views. I never did my own research on politics. Since then I've met amazing people who've helped me see things from a different perspective. Now I see the issues with what I believed before. Happy to say that I do much more research and don't just go in the voting booth blind. I'm now pretty far from conservative. Me in a nutshell. Same. It's almost like when you get out of the bubble of white rural America you see there's a lot more country, a lot more people, a lot more perspectives, and a lot you really didn't know just hard when I go home to my openly homophobic father. I voted and then went to the grocery store with a couple of my younger children. There was a very nice young Hispanic kid working, and he helped me put stuff in my car so he could collect my buggy. He noticed my voted sticker on my child and asked me who I voted for. I was instantly hesitant to answer truthfully, and I realized I felt shame. After Trump actually won, I said, how much damage can one man really do? That 24 hours has haunted me the last 3 years, and now I'm self-quarantining my family since the 15th of March 20, and I've had too much time to think about what a colossal mistake he was. and voting Republican BC the ones in office now are all a death cult. It's been eye-opening. I've told my family, if I get COVID-19 and die they have to put on my tombstone, I died BC. I voted for Trump in 2016. As someone on the opposite side, a Hispanic kid, the best apology you can give to that kid is to vote this man out of office. We all make mistakes and sadly it wouldn't be life without consequences. But the best thing is with some mistakes we can fix them. This following November is yours and every other person who regrets voting for Trump. I hope you and your family stay safe during these rough times. Don't beat yourself out too much of the past and focus on the good you want to do in the future. When he appointed a Goldman executive as treasurer. Drain the what? All downhill from there. It took me a while to figure it out, but that's not the swamp he was talking about. When he talks about the swamp he isn't talking about the various government industrial complexes. The times when you have companies writing the regulations that govern them. Or they hire executives from said companies to govern them. That say okay with Trump. What Trump cannot stand is the civil service. The unelected bureaucrat who spends 50 years mastering one tiny arcane element of government regulation and shapes how that regulation is applied is the thing that gets Trump frothing at the mouth. It's a power thing. The folks that enforce building codes and labor regulations have always compelled him to do stuff, even when he doesn't want to, and he hates that. So, the gutting of our diplomatic corps, the systemic attack on the Department of Justice, the systemic defunding of the post office and Veterans and Affairs are Trump draining the swamp. The deep state that frustrates the initiatives of a new government are professional government employees who have far more control over how things go down than the man in charge, because they're the ones actually doing the work. A lot of people looked at that and said yeah, duck the military-industrial complex, but Trump doesn't care about that. He cares that the EPA and FBI were mean to him by not doing impossible or utterly nonsensical things, because he wants that. The swamp, the deep state, and all that cleaning up never had anything to do with bankers of prisons or arms manufacturers. He has always been contemptuous of formal power structures. Trump is the center of his own universe. Anything that doesn't immediately bend to his arbitrary whims is something to be destroyed. I wish I could upvote this 800,000 times. Print it, frame it, and hang it on every street corner in the country. Spot ducking on. My dad voted for him in 2016, but won't in 2020. He thought Trump would become presidential, raised to the standard of those around him. We all know how that turned out. My story is a lot like other people's here. I grew up in a small Christian town, where everyone was conservative or quiet and climate change was a hoax that climate scientists told us so there would be an economic need for them. I was taught basically that the government is out to get you, and so we must have as small a government as possible. Had I done any research on Trump I might have known that wasn't even his goal. But anyways, I was 18 and had gone to the big city for school, where there were maybe 5 conservatives. I felt like the world was going crazy, and for some arrogant reason, I thought I was seeing what no one else was. I voted for Trump without a second thought. Fast forward a year, I dropped out of that school and moved back to my hometown because I felt like I couldn't handle being around liberals for 3 more years. I started going to community college, where I took a macroeconomics class and learned about economic policies from something other than a YouTube video. Once it became clear that trickle-down economics doesn't work, I started to wonder what else Democrats could be right about. That ultimately led me to becoming the BLM marching, Bernie Sanders campaign donating, climate change believing progressive outlier that I am. Edit. I don't want to spam the comments with my giving thanks, so I figured I'd throw in an edit. I cannot say thank you enough to the people who are supporting me here. This hasn't always been easy. My friends all think I'm crazy and have given into the machine or something. It feels like every time I bring this kind of stuff up with them or my family, it becomes an argument. I know this is a long road, and by no means am I done. 6 months ago, if you would have asked me if I was racist I would have told you there was no way. And now I'm learning all about systemic racism and really just how the actions of a few impact the lives of so many. But anyways, Thank you, and please try to be patient and don't get discouraged when talking with people who hold the views I once did. Yes, there was one moment where everything clicked, but there were 1,000 books, internet comments, TV shows, movies, and any other thing you can use to communicate that put me in a position to accept what I couldn't last time. I promise. Thank you. Edit after getting gold. Wow. Thank you. Whoops. Broke my promise. I don't want to be that guy. But please, don't award me for this. If you can, give money to your local food bank, or if you don't have extra money, consider donating blood. It doesn't hurt as much as you think, and when I went, I got a lemon propel. So it's pretty great. I was 23. My decision was influenced by PPL around me, and I refuse to let that happen again. My family and friends are still on the MAGA streetcar. His handling of the different situations these past 3 years has been utter but. I'm truly sorry, and I will not be voting for this pig this upcoming election. Okay, as someone who didn't vote for Trump, this whole thread is giving me hope. I'm a big fan of personal growth. We all know more today than we did yesterday. I will be undoubtedly wrong about something I believe today, and once finding the truth we'll be okay with it. We need to make personal growth and being wrong okay. People are so afraid of saying I was wrong that they never truly grow. Not saying being Republican is wrong. Just saying Trump is a weird moment in history and now we are all having to deal with it. He has failed all across the board. From education to foreign policy, he has done absolutely nothing but cripple the systems that people rely on in this country. Friend with an immigrant wife did everything right 6 months in advance, and yet our visa paperwork wasn't completed before it ran out. He lets our Kurdish allies die and is a horrible person. I regret voting for this despicable human and his corrupted administration that has made us a shithole country. I was 21 and was tired of nothing but career politician after career politician becoming president. I truly believed that if Trump, someone without political experience, could become president, it would open the door for us to be more accepting of non-career politicians becoming president. I always believed that anyone could be president, and I always felt that someone further from the time-wasting BS that normally clogs politics would be more representative of the common American citizen. How TF I thought Cheeto Bunker Boy was representative of the American people. IDK. But now I realize that it's people like AOC who can truly understand what it's like to be a normal person and can still exist in the political landscape. She's my new hero. This is definitely how I felt and still feel. I was always uncomfortable with rich career politicians being the spokesperson for the everyday people and only making policy to help people when they could use it to show off how charitable and caring they are. Even though it was so clearly a hoax, I voted for Johnson since he seemed less angry and better than Trump and was still an outsider in the political sphere. I didn't really mind Trump because he said he was going to help the lower class unite against the elite. Clubbutism and racism go hand in hand in my opinion, and I thought Trump could beat clubbutism better than Clinton could beat racism. Unfortunately, it turned out that Trump really was racist and none of his policies helped the lower class at all. A true loss for the US. When AOC said that people think being a member of Congress makes you intrinsically better than being a waitress, and how people mock her for her previous job as a waitress. It was like finally someone had spoken up against the elitism towards the uneducated lower class of any race. Really glad to hear someone I can respect say that. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you want more videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. You are helping me a lot. Thanks again.